Time to read again. Get back to my 3,000 page book that I'm halfway through, but I just don't wanna. Think I'm gonna take a break and I'm gonna read a novella. And that's what we're gonna be talking about in today's video is what is a novella anyway? You may have heard the word thrown around. You may have thought somebody pronounced novel funny. A novella really is an in-between of a short story and a novel. And confession time, I used to say novella completely wrong. I used to call it novella. Um, and I still do it from time to time, to be fair, but I've been corrected so many times through the years. I tend to not like to get chastised by the community, so I will say novella or make strong attempts to do so. And that's the thing. We don't say terminology out loud too often. So when we make a pronunciation in our brain case, we kind of stick to it. And trying to unlearn that habit or break that habit is a struggle, especially for me. I will say authors' names wrong. I will say titles wrong. I will even say book terms wrong sometimes. And I do make a concentrated effort to try to correct myself when in fact I vetted the correction is true, because maybe they're wrong and I'm right. But I digress. It is novella, like Nutella, but novella. I hope that helps because that's kind of how I remember it. I know it's silly, but it works for me. Novella is anywhere between 20,000, 50,000 ish words, and the page ranges can range from like 60 to 120. It depends on the format of the book and the font type used, if it's a wider book or a thinner book, etc. Because books come in all shapes and sizes. Um, it tends to focus on a focus, centralized conflict or theme, something going on. And it's got a much narrower scope and fewer characters normally because of, again, the page length. How I like to think of it is it's not something that's going to have a plot and a subplot and subplots for my subplots that have a plot twist and the plotting that circle their way back around to the main plot. It's none of that really. It's more of one thing, and maybe there is a one to two subplot element going on, but you don't need a murder board to figure out your novel. Um, Thank you, Novellas, from saving us from murder. Anyway, it's just a more focused narrative of what it is. It's to the point. So if you ever popped on a film that just kind of jumps into the story, either they're jumping out of a plane, like this is how our movie's gonna go. Okay. Um, and you're just along for the short ride and the duration. And you can usually chum through a novella in maybe a day or two if you got a Saturday afternoon free, and depending on your reading speed, of course. It's not going to be a multi-week read or a multi-month read by any stretch of the imagination. And they're really good if you need a break from those longer reads. Like if I'm reading a work that's 2 or 3,000 pages long, that's a commitment. It's going to take me a while to chew through that. So maybe I want to take a break for a moment, read a novella, and then jump back into my epic tome that I really, really want to read. It's not that I don't want to read it at all or avoid it. It's just I need a break from time to time. I think we all do, even if it's something we love and adore, like reading. So a novella is a good, satisfying, shorter version of that. Um, and so short stories, they are a even shorter work than a novella. How I like to think of the three, a short story is like a scoop of ice cream. Novella is like a without the cone, and a novella is a small cone, one scoop of ice cream. Then we got our novels. They're more like a large cone, single, double, triple scoop, sprinkles, whipped cream, cherry on top. I'm gonna need a bucket to carry this thing back. Um, or they could be a whole gallon of ice cream sometimes. This can be ridiculous. And they're enjoyable. They're all enjoyable. But a novella, I think, is that happy medium ground for it's not too short and it's not too long. And it's just a clear snapshot, I think, of what the author's trying to convey. We're going to go into some examples of novellas. Some of them you may have heard of, some of you may never have heard of. And let's get to novelloing the screen share. And hopefully this is a short transition because I'm usually terrible at this. Here we go. So this first one, I actually saw the film, and I had no idea when I was reading the novella. Um, bef- it was called Stand By Me is the name of the film, and the short story is actually called something completely different. It is called The Body by Stephen King. Now, the book that this is in is called Different Seasons. So we got Stand By Me, we got Different Seasons, and then we got what I'm trying to reference is The Body. The Body is a really good story, and if you're not familiar, it's a coming of age story. Children find a body and go on a quest and self-discovery, and you kind of watch them go from adolescence to more of an adult mindset through the story. And it's not, I wouldn't technically call it a horror work. There are some horror themes or traumatic themes, I would say, but it's not traditional horror, not when you're thinking of Stephen King's work. But this one has again three other novellas in it for less than 20 bucks. I mean, and you're getting the main one I'm talking about, which again is The Body, and might as well pick it up for 20 bucks. I mean, really, guys. Next one is actually my background. It is The House on Mango Street by Sandra Sonoras, or Sonoras. Again, gonna pronounce it wrong. Correct me, blast me in the comments so I can be a better human. It is Latin Heritage Month, and then bookshop.org is running a sale. See the little purple banner and then this little red banner, so it's 20% off right now. So that's pretty cool. And this is again is another coming of age story, and but it's set in Chicago, and it's with a girl coming of age instead of a boy or a group of boys in a Chicago neighborhood. I'm not going to tell you too much more than that because I do want you to read it yourself, and it's a really good read, and you'll enjoy it. So going on down, we got The Grown Up from Gillian Flynn. She did Gone Girl again, I believe famous work, and looks like it's a editor's pick on Amazon. If you can find it outside of Amazon, please do so. In fact, if you can find any of these books in a bookstore, go get it from the bookstore before shopping online. Um, but what's the book about, Johnny? Well, the book is was originally published as part of an anthology or collection of maybe interconnected works. But the grown up actually focuses on a a suspense of a fake psychic or a bogus psychic. But here comes a plot twist. One, she encounters a client who is genuinely haunted, and then it gets interesting from there. Really good, really good. Um, Speaking of really good and also really expensive, is the life cycle of software objects by Ted Ching, and this one's really cool, especially relevant today, I believe, because it are machines developing like a human like entity or child, and it explores that question. It did win a Hugo Award because of this concept, but with AI and robotics going on right now, it is fascinating. And if we look at the cover art, I mean, it is a little robot baby sucking its little robot thumb with a humanish looking umbilical cord. And I've already got like 30 stories going in my head just off that cover art. It's great cover art, by the way. But it is pricey. This is one of the cheaper ones I was able to find. If you can find it cheaper or find it cheaper in your local bookstore, please do. If you're a reseller, this is kind of a bolo for you. Be on the lookout. So, also, if you're shopping on eBay, never take the Klarna deal. It's not worth it. I know it seems better, but it's not in the long run. Um, Next up, we got The Convenience Store Woman. This book went gangbusters over in Japan, and so much so through the rumblings of literary grapevine, came over to America, and Americans liked it. They really did. It's a quirky, unsettling look at social expectations through the eyes, well, of a convenience store clerk. Um, it sounds really mundane, but sometimes those are the most interesting stories, the mundane ones. And you're just getting like what she goes through, and it's wonderful. We're going to some more classical works now, as those are more modern. Heart of Darkness. Well, now, talk about a book that makes you think for a moment. So, Heart of Darkness is an adventure exploratory novel. You're going through the Congo River, and it really shines a spotlight on the underbelly of European colonialism. Because when we read history, we kind of don't get the nitty gritty over exonification of what really went on. It's kind of like a broad, there was a war, people died, instead of the atrocities that went on during said war. And this kind of focuses on more of the atrocities of things, of European colonialism. And next up, we got The Metamorphoses by Franz Kafka. Really cool cover. Kind of looks like a bug or a beetle, which it is. This particular version was translated by Susan Bernofsky and an introduction by David Kronberg. Um, so, this book is basically about a traveling salesman. I'm already in. I love traveling salesman stories. Um, and he wakes up in the morning to find himself inexplicably, no rhyme or reason, transformed into a bug or an insect, and a monstrous one at that. And we go through the story like that, and it's really, really good. Um, Ernest Hemingway. You've heard of him probably. If you haven't, I question why you're watching this video. But anyway, The Old Man and the Sea. The Old Man and the Sea. It's basically about a fisherman um, off the coast of Cuba, and he is trying to get this marlin. And it's pretty much your man versus nature story, and is really good. It is it is an American classic. I had to think for a second. Is Hemingway an American or British author? He's American, and I should have known that. But anyway, um, definitely worth the read. It's interesting as again, it's focused. You're on a boat, a silly boat, and you're fishing, and that's the story essentially. Of Mice and Men. Again, I think you can read this book in like less than 4 hours, maybe a couple. It really just depends. We got a cheaper copy again on eBay. Neat cover art. Did win a Nobel Prize. Steinbeck, pretty solid author all around if you're not familiar with him. And it's a story of a couple of farm rancher people who are in the Great Depression, and they're trying to live the American dream and the struggles within that said American dream. It is thought provoking, as most of these books are. It causes you to at least think about one thing. And again, I think that's a strong part of the novella. Wants you to think about one thing and noodle on it. And I like noodling on one thing. Um, Noodling on multiple things or jumping from this to this to this to this is fun too. But if I'm really going to intellectually think and ponder, I want to do it on a singular thing. So next up, Animal Farm by Mr. George Orwell. This is a pricier copy. There are plenty of cheaper copies, but I chose this one because that is a cool cover. This is an allegory and a political one at that, and it's basically animals on a farm who overthrow their human oppressors, and they fall under the, well, new and more ruthless tyranny. So what they escape from, now they're back in it, but it's a worst case scenario. And it just kind of explores those things, very classic work of literature. So yeah, we'll just go through them really quickly. We have The Body, which is the book Different Seasons. Again, a collection of 4 novellas in here, but The Body's the one you want to particularly read. Got The House on Mango Street. Got a coming of age story set in Chicago. And we got The Grown Up, by Gillian Flynn. And again, bogus psychic who encounters, well, real haunting. Surprise. The life cycle of software objects, and, well, that questions what is real, what is human, what's humanity, right? Convenience store woman. The title's pretty much what the book's about. So go into the heart of darkness, and again, that's about the Congo River and the realness of colonial European colonialism. Metamorphosis, guy turns into a bug, and who doesn't like that? Old Man in the Sea, guy versus fish, woohoo! Of Mice and Men by Steinbeck. Again, we're struggling through the depression, trying to live that good old American dream. The Animal Farm, we're animals. We want to overthrow our oppressors of humans, but what we get after is not so great either. So let's stop the screen share. So yeah, novellas. They're less of a commitment overall, and if you just need a break, or you just are starting reading, or you want to get back into reading, a novella is a good choice to kind of get your feet wet. It is a shorter work. I think it can drive a more emotional and intellectual punch if you're wanting to think about one plot point or a couple plot points or what the book's trying to mean. Um, that leads to them being a great entry point for you to, well, explore a new author. Maybe you've heard of Steinbeck, maybe you've heard of Hemingway, and a lot of their works are gigantic, right? But picking up a novella kind of gives you a sampling, um, that small ice cream cone of the kind of flavor the author is most of the time. And my next point is kind of counter that point, as a lot of authors like novellas, um, to kind of try to experiment to see if they can write in some other genre, because they're famous for one thing, right? And they want to try something else, like Stephen King. Again, the body's not necessarily a horror book, but it's got dark themes, and it's very much a coming of age story versus a true horror story. And it gives him a little bit of room to play with it to see what people think about it. And that goes true for all authors. So looking at an author's experimental work is also fascinating, especially if they haven't written a lot of novellas, maybe just novels, excuse me, or short stories. Um, yeah, they're great. And if you like novellas, maybe you want to try short stories, which are even just more of a micro or snapshot than a novella, and much more so than a novel. So if you like what I'm doing here, I do have a Patreon where we have a Discord community where people can talk about books all day long. We're starting a book club group going in the next couple months here. So if that's your jam and want to read along with us, novellas, novels, and short stories and all of that, feel free to um, take a look. A link for that's down in the description. For the books I mentioned today, we will definitely have all those in the descriptions as well. Don't necessarily feel compelled to buy the ones I linked. I linked them mainly because the cover art was cool, and cool cover art makes for a cool video. And I think that is going to do it for today. So keep on booking on.